Now, the reason the children were so excited about seeing their godpapa Drosselmeyer was because godpapa Drosselmeyer gave them the most interesting gifts. You see, in those days, before there was electricity, there were no lights in the ceilings, there were no lights on tables, there were no switches on the walls to turn lights on and off. Electricity didn't exist yet, neither did batteries. So toys, they didn't have batteries, or there was no plug to plug in a wall. There were no outlets. Toys in those days just sat. They didn't do anything. There were no batteries to make them move. But because godpapa Drosselmeyer was a clockmaker, he used his clock-making abilities. Like if in those days, clocks, you had to wind them up. There was a little key in the back, and you wound it up to make the clock work, because inside there were these mechanisms that made it the hands turn. So when he made a toy, he used the same mechanisms that you would find inside a clock. For example, his toys, he gave Fritz for Christmas, as a Christmas gift, an entire set of toy soldiers. And it wasn't just two, there was about 16 of them. And they each had a sword, and they each had a nice uniform. And in the back, there was a key that you would turn to make the soldier, and the soldiers would move. And that was very unusual, because most children's toys didn't move. So they were really impressed by toys that he would make and give them. So Fritz got an entire set, like 16 tin soldiers, very small. And he gave Marie the Nutcracker. And when he handed it to her, he said, "Now, Marie, please take very good care of this Nutcracker. He means a very great deal to me. He means a lot to me." So she said, "Oh, I love him, godpapa Drosselmeyer. He had a nice red uniform and a handsome sword, and he was a Nutcracker," and she loved him. And she said, "Oh, thank you, godpapa. I love him so much." And sometimes we have brothers or sisters, and they sometimes say mean things, right? So Fritz looked at the Nutcracker and he said, "Oh, he's ugly." And Marie said, "Oh, don't say that. You'll hurt his feelings." And godpapa Drosselmeyer said, "Well, Marie and Fritz, would you like to hear the story of the Nutcracker and what happened to him?" And they said, "Yes, godpapa Drosselmeyer, we'd love to hear the story." Oh, here's a picture of godpapa Drosselmeyer giving Marie the Nutcracker. And so this is the story that godpapa Drosselmeyer told to Marie and Fritz. So this is a story that he told them. He said, "Once upon a time, there was a king." Okay, so let's make a king. Once upon a time, there was a king and a queen. So we'll make a queen. And this king and queen lived in a kingdom. So we'll give them a kingdom. Let's see. Okay, that's a bad kingdom, but okay. So they live in this kingdom. And they also have a little daughter. And her name is Princess Parlipat. Okay, so they have a little daughter. So you've got a king, a queen, and a daughter, Princess Parlipat, and they live in a kingdom. And he said, one day it was the princess's 16th birthday. So now she's 16 years old, and the king wants to throw her a party in the kingdom. So in the castle. So he asks his wife, the queen, he says, "Queenie, can you make your best sausages, make 300 of your very best sausages?" So she said, "Of course." So she got to work right away making 300 of her very best sausages. And the king always loved it when she made them. And so she was making them, and he would sneak in the kitchen. The king wanted to steal a little piece of sausage, and he'd sneak in, and she'd say, "Oh, they're not done yet. Oh, they're not done." So then he'd sneak in a little while later to try to steal a piece of sausage, and she'd say, "No, they're not done. So the king kept trying to do this. But there was a mouse. If you see the mouse in the picture, the little tiny queen of the mice, that's Queen Mouserink. Now, Queen Mouserink came up to the queen and said, "Queenie, can I have a little bit of your sausages?" And the queen said, "Of course, we're both queens, aren't we? Of course you could have a piece of sausage." So the queen gave the little Queen Mouserink a little piece of her sausages. And the Queen Mouse said, "This is so delicious." And she squeaked a special squeak. And when she did that, all of her friends and relative mice came scampering into the kitchen. Hundreds of mice. They squeezed in under the door. They squeezed in under the window. They squeezed in through a little crack in the wall. At the hundreds of mice just scampering into the kitchen. Oh boy, did they enjoy that sausage. They ate every last piece of sausage. And then they all left. Well, the king came in, and he's sneaking in to steal a piece of sausage, and they were all gone. He said, "What happened? Where's all the sausages?" And the queen said, "I'm sorry, king, but they're all gone." And he said, "What happened?" And she said, "Well, Queen Mouserink came, and all of her friends and relations ate all of the sausages. They ate every last piece." Well, the king was so mad. When kings get mad, they set decrees. He said, "I'm going to make a decree." That's like a law in the kingdom. "I decree that whoever can rid my kingdom of these pesky mice can marry my daughter, Princess Parlapat." Well, if you got to marry the princess, well, you'd be set. You'd get to sleep in a golden bed. You'd get to live in the castle. You'd get all the best food. Boy, you'd really have it good if you could marry that princess. So he said, he was so mad, he said, "Whoever can get rid of all these mice, this mouse problem in my kingdom, can marry my daughter, Princess Parlapat." Well, in that kingdom, there happened to live a clockmaker with white, puffy hair and a black patch over one eye. And he happened to have a nephew, about 16 years old, this kid was. So here's the 16-year-old nephew. Sorry, I'm not going to do such a great job drawing him. But there he is, okay? And everybody in the kingdom knew him. They knew him as the handsome young Nutcracker. And the reason they called him the handsome young Nutcracker is because he had the ability to crack even the hardest nuts with his hands, and the shells would just fall out. He was so strong. He had such a strong grip. So they called him up. "There goes the handsome young Nutcracker," they would say. So there he was. He was known in the kingdom. So the clockmaker had this great idea. He said, "Boy, if I could set my nephew up to marry that princess, that would be great." So he went about to make the world's first mousetrap. And so he made a mousetrap. And he gave the mousetraps, he made a lot of mousetraps, and he gave them to his nephew to put around the kingdom. So his nephew took all the mousetraps and he set them out all over the kingdom. And everybody saw, "Oh, look it, there goes the handsome young Nutcracker. What's he doing? Oh, I see, he's placing mousetraps all over the place. Oh, I wonder what he's doing." So why do you think that his uncle, why do you think he had his nephew set the mousetraps all over the kingdom? Why didn't he do it himself? Because he wanted his nephew to get the credit for catching all the mice. He didn't want to marry the princess. He wanted his nephew to marry the princess. So that's why he had his nephew do it. So all of the mice were caught, except for two mice. Two mice were not caught. Queen Mouserink was not caught because she was far too clever to be caught in a mousetrap. And also her son was not caught. Now, she had a son, the Prince Mouse. This mouse was huge, and he had 7 heads that all came out of one body. And each head had a shiny golden crown, and he had a large sword. And this was her son, the Prince Mouse. And neither of those were caught in those mousetraps. And when the king found out that all of the mice were caught, He said, and we'll go to the next video to find out what he said.